I want to thank you all for being here today. My name is Donna Colorio. I served on the Worcester School Committee from 2011 to 2013. I've been an adjunct psychology professor at Quinsigamond Community College and an MTA member for the last 22 years. And most importantly, I am a mother of 3, with my last daughter attending a Worcester high school. A group of citizen activists and legislators opposed to an initiative ballot question campaign today to restore the state's pre-2010 educational standards. I am the founder of an advocacy group, Common Core Forum, and the chair of the End Common Core Massachusetts ballot question. On July 21st, 2010, 12 members of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed made a monumental decision. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed voted to accept federal dollars and totally change Massachusetts educational standards into what is now called Common Core state standards. This is wrong. I think voters should have a choice in whether to continue with these untested educational standards. Our ballot question's goal is to give the people of Massachusetts a voice in that educational decision. We can keep our public schools number 1 by returning to the 2010 educational state standards, or we can participate in this very unproven Common Core educational standards, which is, at best, a race to the middle. It should be our choice. After organizing over 40 state Common Core forums and listening to more than 17,000 teachers, grandparents, parents, researchers, and students voice their concerns and thoughts and opinions about Common Core and PARCC, I have come to the conclusion that Common Core and PARCC are not what the majority of people in Massachusetts want our educational standards to be. I've listened to so many frustrated teachers who are concerned about their students not being able to learn the Common Core way. It appears to me that no one is listening. We need to do something to change this, and the ballot question is my way of offering voters a choice. Governor Baker said in March, when he made his appointment to the chair of the Board of Ed, "I think it's an embarrassment that the state has spent 2 years giving educators, families, parents, administrators, and others an opportunity to comment and engage around the assessment system that eventually became the MCAS, basically gave no one a voice or an opportunity to engage in the decision that we have before us, and went ahead and executed on Common Core and PARCC. I agree with Governor Baker. The time has come to let's end Common Core." With me today, I have one of the experts in the field of educational standards in the country, Sandra Stotsky. Sandra is a professor at the University of Arkansas, where she held the 21st Century Chair in Teacher Quality. She served as a Senior Associate Commissioner at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed from 1999 to 2003, where she was in charge of developing or revising the state's K-12 standards, teacher license test, and teacher and administrator's license regulations. She served on the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Ed from 2006 to 2010, a citizen's position on the National Mathematics Advisory Panel for 2006 to 2008, and on the Common Core Validation Committee from 2009 to 2010. She's one of the 5 members of the Validation Committee who would not sign off on the standards as they were being validated. She has published extensively in professional journals and written several books. Please welcome Dr. Sandra Stotsky.
Thank you very much for the introduction. This initiative petition and ballot question that will seek to restore the pre-Common Core standards in English language arts and mathematics that this state benefited from for over a dozen years is our way of letting parents and teachers and other citizens across the state have a voice in a policy that was made by a small board of education. I was on the State Board of Education at the time in 2010, and nobody, including local school committees, even the media, barely understood what was happening, and many of them did not know about it in advance because local school committees were not even given the courtesy of what the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education was going to vote for based on the commissioner's recommendation. We knew we would get $250 million in Race to the Top money if we dumped our superior standards in English language arts and math. And that seemed to be the driver for it all. But we need to remember that those pre-Common Core standards put Bay State students at the very top on our national tests and on international tests that could not be manipulated or controlled either by state officials or federal officials. That was a far more authentic validation of what our kids had accomplished under a set of policies that reflected academic thinking and tests that were based on those kinds of standards, and teacher licensing regulations and licensure tests that also reflected those standards, because all three pieces had to be in place. And what we're trying to do through this ballot initiative is to take the first step and restore those first-class pre-Common Core standards in English and math that put our kids right at the top, grades 4 and grade 8, and on NAEP, National Assessment of Educational Progress tests, from 2005 on, 5 consecutive sets of tests. And Bay State kids were on top. Those standards weren't perfect and the tests weren't perfect, but they were far better than almost anything else out there in the rest of the country, and they were as internationally benchmarked as we could make them at the time. That is what we now need to aim for, but we first need to get rid of the inferior standards that are not demanding, not challenging, and restore the ones that we know worked in schools that teachers liked, because we have evidence from our teachers, and we know that parents were happy with them compared to all the complaints we hear today. So on the next election, parents and teachers are going to have a chance to tell Governor Baker and Secretary of Education James Pizer and the current Board of Education, headed by Paul Sagan, that they want to take the first step and restore first-class standards. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge Representative Donnie Berthium, Representative Joe McKenna, and Representative Kevin Kuros. Kevin, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thank you, Donna. Good morning, everybody. I come here today not just as a legislator, but also as a proud parent of a recent high school grad who's performed and done very well under our current standards of MCAS. If you take just a quick look at the history, as Donna had shared, when MCAS was designed and prior to implementation, there were 2 years of hearings before a single kid took a test. That's not what happened with Park. We've taken the test, and now we're having hearings. So I think we've got that process backwards, first of all. Second of all, the only other major point that I really wanted to make today, and why I'm supportive of this initiative, is to harken back to the old expression that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you take a look at our students' academic performance since the implementation of MCAS, we've led the country. That's not broken by any measurement. Now, if you take a look at the adoption of Park, initially, right out of the blocks, I believe there were 26 states signed up to participate in Park as part of Common Core. That number, depending on how you count it, is somewhere between 7 and 10 states that are left as part of that coalition. That should be very telling. Now, if you were already leading the nation in student performance, do you really need to change? Why are we still one of the last 7 to 10 states that are part of this coalition? Recently, we've been reminded that it's not Commissioner Chester's decision as to whether or not Park is fully implemented here. As many of you know, the Commissioner also serves as the chairman of the Park Commission. Now, some indicate that, or some feel that that's a conflict of interest. I'm not here today to weigh in as to whether or not it is a conflict of interest. I believe you may have a State Ethics Commission ruling that indicates that they feel it is not. However, it is his job to recommend a standard to the board. He cannot not recommend Park to the board as he sits on the chair. Otherwise, he's invalidating the work he's done for the last several years. So given that he will be recommending Park to the board, you then have to look at what action will the board likely take. The board just recently gave Commissioner Chester a very, very positive annual performance review. So if he were to recommend Park, and I believe to the bottom of my heart that he will, the board will be hard-pressed not to move forward with his recommendation, which only leaves one other action, or one other way to change that course of action. This may feel like turning the Titanic before it hits an iceberg, but we can do it with the ballot initiative, and that's why I'm on board this initiative. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for my speakers, and thank you all for coming today. Like us on Facebook and Common Core Mass, and follow us on Twitter. Thank you, everybody.